So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the second of Wardor's Creative B2B series. Today we're discussing client and agency relationships and how, on both sides, you get the most out of that relationship. I'm really pleased to say that I'm being joined by Maria McDonagh from Thornton. So let's do some introductions.
Thanks, Ben. Maria McDonagh. I am the CMO at Thornton, where I've been for nearly 7 years now. My background is very much professional services and B2B marketing for as long as I can remember, which is a long time now.
Brilliant. Well, look, Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And I'm Ben Rosser. I'm the Executive Director of Wardor. Been with the agency for just coming up a year. Prior to that, spent 8 years at Omnicom, so with RAP and BBDO. Had a range of different experiences and looking forward to this today. Right at the beginning, hiring an agency. So Maria, why do you hire an agency in the first place? And I suppose the second question to that is, what does an agency bring that you can't actually address out of your own team?
Yeah, sure. So for us, we've got a really lean team in-house, so some specialist skills, but not loads of them. So we're always consumed with the day-to-day, the BAU. So occasionally we get the opportunity to do something really bigger for the firm, a bit more juicy for the firm. So then we need some skills and experience and knowledge that we might not have in-house, or we want a little bit extra of what we've already got in-house. So it could be supplementing what's already there.
Yep.
But it's very much about bringing some fresh eyes on what we're doing, fresh perspectives, and just really challenging us to be a bit more brave and confident as well. So that's usually the first reason to bring in an agency when we have the luxury of some budget to do that.
The luxury of some budget to do that. No, I hear you. Yeah. Okay, that's great. And I think we'll come on to sort of my thoughts around that in a moment. But just onto the pitch specifically. So I think 2 questions on that as well. How do you select an agency initially for the pitch, and then after that building the pitch brief itself? Interested to know like the component parts to that.
Yeah, so I guess we start with understanding what our objectives are, what we're trying to achieve for the business, and because I've been working with agencies for some time, I get quite thorough in terms of the brief because I just know that that's going to get the best out of the conversation. So we very much just put together what we think is a good campaign plan or a good understanding of the objectives and our outcomes, etc. But in terms of choosing who we might bring in to pitch, it's very much based on who we know already.
Right, yep.
So much of the team have been around for a long time across various different industries and businesses, and we always go back to those relationships that have worked for us in the past. So very, very rarely do we rock up to a new agency that we've not worked with before or not had a conversation with before. So that relationship is really, really key in terms of getting the pitch together.
I've just thought of this actually. In terms of, do you do that directly or do you use intermediaries if you're looking for agencies?
No, just go direct.
Go direct because you know
personal relationships, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
interesting.
I mean, a good example is you guys, right? So I worked with Martin, the CEO here, many moons ago, and we stayed in touch over the years and probably haven't actually worked together for a big period of time between that, but always talked to him, always had his input on some of my career aspirations, all that kind of stuff, and here we are working together again. So
great. And in terms of sort of the right fit agency, does the classic holding company versus the independent, does that matter? And I ask that because you hear there's 2 sides to it, right? Holding company, big organisations, lots of talent, but then also the downside might be it's a behemoth and hard to shift. Whereas an indie, agile, etc., but also maybe it doesn't have the broader experience of a holding company.
I've always found those bigger agencies with a bigger promise are not always able to fulfil that promise. It becomes quite difficult to navigate that kind of organisation. So I think I've always ended up going back to agencies like yours, where I know what you do. You've got the team here. You're not going to say, well, actually, we've got a group over here doing this who can also, because it becomes too complex for me. So for me, that might not be everybody's choice, but certainly in professional services, we're not. The brief's never going to be massively complex. So we need loads of different pieces to it. So it just makes more sense to go to a bit more of a compact organisation.
And the pitch itself, what are you actually looking for? Because you'll come in and we'll talk strategically, we'll talk creatively, we'll talk about us as a business, although I'm a big believer, I'm not going to come and tell you about us, I want to hear about you, but what are the sort of the priorities in terms of what you're really looking for?
Yeah, so that you've actually read the brief and understood it.
It's amazing how often that doesn't happen.
Simple.
Yeah.
And, a really good way to get that across is just really playing it back and saying, is that right? Rather than just assuming that you've got it right.
Yeah.
So really appreciate that kind of open conversation about the brief in the first place. And then it's, questioning that brief and really trying to get into the crux of it that we wouldn't have got through on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So that's the really important part. And then a lot of it just comes down to chemistry at the end of the day. We've brought you in as an agency because you tick X boxes in terms of your capabilities. Yeah. You're probably going to show us some case studies and some creds that what you've done before. Yeah. And we've probably seen those anyway because we've looked on your website.
I'd like to think you've seen them, absolutely.
But then it comes down to chemistry. It comes down to kind of the language that you use in terms of how well you understand us as a business. And really just, if there's things that turn me off about that conversation, then it's kind of hard to get it back again.
It's hard to row back from there,
Do you ever come across a team that you don't want to work with on the client side?
I mean, yeah, I guess so. I mean, obviously I'm not going to name any names here, but I've been in enough pitches where I've thought to myself, this is going to be difficult.
Right, okay.
And I suppose you're essentially relying on your instinct, aren't you? Your gut feel as individuals. That all said, I think that agencies and also people in, frankly, client services type roles, we need to be chameleons. We need to be able to work with different people. Yeah. But certainly there are times when you think, but also you then might come out of a session and do you know who'd be a really good fit for that person would be X because they're both, I don't know, whatever they like. Okay, that's really good start. Good start on pitches. Actually, so seamlessly leads into the client-agency relationship, which is essentially the nub of this conversation, I guess. So what do you think are the foundations of a good agency-client relationship? So, you've won the piece of business, we're away with the relationship. Yeah. What are the foundations for that? Yeah,
and we're in the same business when it comes down to it. We're, as an accounting advisory business, we're selling people as well. We don't have a product, so I think we're quite attuned to this in terms of what works well. And it's the basics, isn't it, around communication, around listening, no surprises, just, constant stream of updates on how things are going, but also a bit of honesty around when things aren't going so well. Absolutely. I think, those are the basics. And I think if you get those things right, then you've got permission to take the relationship to a different level. And then it becomes less transactional. And you start to build something that's a bit more two-way. Yeah. And then it becomes less about a project and more about, a bit more of a long-term working relationship. Yeah.
I think, for us, and I like to encourage, I hope I do it myself, but encourage the team to do it, is exactly that. Yeah. And that doesn't always have to be a really formal thing. No. That might be something, I've read something really interesting that's around professional services. Maria, have a read of this. Yeah, exactly. And I like to think that you go, they're on it, they're listening, that's good.
And I know it's hard for you to do some of that because you do work with competitors as well.
I know.
So as much as I might say, what is X up to at the moment? I know you can't share that, but actually what's really interesting for me is probably not what competitors are up to, it's what other B2B businesses are up to or further than that really. So and a little bit around creating a community as well. Because I find my role can be really lonely at times. But I think agencies can do a really good job at connecting some people, like lots of me probably. You could probably think, Maria would do with a chat with X. She's got that issue, so X over there. So I think that's another piece that's really valuable.
You know what? And frankly, it's people, right? It's just it's about building a relationship with people. The other thing for me as well is to ensure that between the client and the agencies that we're clear on what we're trying to achieve. Yeah. And we could get into the whole measurement effectiveness thing, which, is fundamentally important. But I think if we're clear on what those things are, and we can almost always revert back to them and say, okay, well, are we achieving X, Y, Z? And that mightn't always be hard metrics. It might not be sales or whatever there might be. It might be around sort of service and planning, and that you're getting, the account management that you basically are paying for. Are you getting it? Are you getting the planning, the advisory, the kind of horizon scanning type stuff? And that can be a good benchmark as well. So I just think it's always good to be able to revert back to ultimately what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So.
And what makes a good client then, Ben?
I mean, pays on time. No, what makes a good client? I think, I think in the main, it's about the fact that they kind of let you in. And by that, I mean, I suppose it's going from especially when it's early, you know each other through the pitch, whatever. It's trying to get to basically what you were saying about a partnership.
Yeah.
It's about someone or the relationship that you are trying to pull together. And what doesn't happen is that it's right, oh, well, let's just blame the agency. Let's just kick the agency. And look, that happens. Like, we've all seen that. And sometimes, if you need to be kicked, then you need to be kicked. That's fine. But I think having a partnership mindset and working through problems together, I think is the foundation of it.
Yeah.
And in fairness, I think most clients want to do that actually, because ultimately, our job as an agency is to be effective for our clients. And so if we're being effective, then hopefully we're going to the right place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, that partnership piece is really important. Okay, good. So related to that, so how important is, or let me start again, can you overstate how important it is for an agency to understand your business? And I know you and I have talked about this off this chat before.
Yeah.
And also, well, let's do that one first, and then we'll...
It's really, 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 really important. And why? Because at some point, I need to trust you enough to put you in front of some pretty important stakeholders, most likely CEO at some point, depending on what the project is. And if in that meet you say something or you use the wrong language, I feel like that really reflects really badly on me.
So it's a trust thing, right?
It is trust.
Yeah.
So I need, it's often just the really small things like... I know we use loads of acronyms and different language and professional services, but just even understanding a few of those and showing that you've taken the time to is really important.
Yeah.
But also the way that we work, because I know professional services can be quite slow sometimes and frustrating.
Yeah.
And we might say, well, this project is going to take 3 months and we're still here 9 months later and still not finished yet.
I mean, imagine that, yeah.
So I think there's a two-way thing here, and perhaps there's something about us better understanding the agency world too.
You know what, and I think that's, we're going to jump to that, but let's talk about it now. The challenge for that is that, and I use these words quite often, it's like, we're running a business too.
Yeah.
And, we have targets quarterly, half year, etc. We come to year end now, and, we are managing our business, and that because essentially the days of retainers are over, we are, essentially it's project based.
Yeah.
And you have line of sight on it, but it's not like guaranteed. So you are constantly playing a game, you're constantly moving things around. And so when, for example, you think you've got a brief and it's worth X amount, and we think we're going to phase it across to this 3-month period, and that kicks to 6 months, but the number's the same, then the value's the same, if you know what I mean, but it's stretched across 6 rather than 3 months. And so for us, that is the game. And so there is also then the resourcing. We are not sitting here just waiting for Grant Thornton to give us a call. We will then upscale as and when we need to, or bring people in from within the business. I suppose that from us, it's just a line of sight. It's like as best as we can get it. It makes it easy. But I also appreciate that there are times where you're like, I just don't know. And I get that. So I think that is constantly the game that we play, which has its moments.
It does.
So,
It does.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's the business and the process wise. Obviously, let's talk a little bit about creativity and storytelling, because we are a content and creative agency. How important do you think powerful creative and storytelling is to your brand, your business?
Really powerful. I mean, we've got a global brand. It means different things to different member firms across the world.
Yeah.
So how we bring that to life is all about storytelling. It's all about having our clients tell the story for us, as well as us telling the story, but also telling it in a way that's differentiating, because we're a category that's incredibly difficult to differentiate in massively.
Yep.
And to be able to do that well can make such a big difference in terms of our cut through in the market.
Yeah.
So being able to do that in a creative way, and professional services is probably one of the least creative industries in the world, it's just massively powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important for us.
Now that is, I mean, it's in B2B and in particularly in professional services, I think from our side, it's, and I suppose this comes down to like, what is our role? It's an element of sort of bringing the outside in as well. So you've got that, like you were saying, you need to understand our business, you need to understand our process, and that's absolutely right. But I think our role, particularly from a content and storytelling, is bringing the outside in and actually challenging you to be bolder, if that's a word, more bold, bolder. And I actually heard it on a podcast the other day. I'm going to steal it. Someone said that you don't have the budget to be boring. So you're not Google.
I heard that too.
Did you? Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. You're not Google or Apple or Nike where you can just drop tens or hundreds of millions in a year on media.
Yeah.
So that means then the creator has to be right.
Yeah.
It has to be right to get that cut through. And for us, and I think this is where we play nicely or strongly, is that it's also because of the nature of your businesses and the audience you're talking to, is then to have that sort of deep knowledge on it might be quite a niche audience, but for us to recognize that and say, no, but we have that capability to tell that story. And that, broadly speaking, is, I suppose, our proposition is our ability to do that.
It's interesting though, because it's back to that kind of people are people and consume as people.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think we often fall into a trap where we think that people turn up to work at 8:30 every morning and become a different person. And I think we need that challenge to remind us that that's not the case, and that's why we can be creative, and that's why we can push the boundaries. People don't want to read jargon, they just want to read plain simple English that helps them do their job better at the end of the day. So
excellent. So let's talk about a little bit about creative technology.
Good.
I was going to say AI. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say creative technology. So look, we live in a fast-paced world, right? And we all know that, and it is always changing. I mean, I don't know about you, I feel like a new SaaS platform comes out every week, and it's like, what do you think? I don't know. So how does your team's role work in that world, and what's your expectation of an agency in that respect?
Things are crazy quick at the moment, and I can't keep up, and I am also a bit of a dinosaur, so I guess there's a couple of things here. So the last point first, I need to be able to have a sensible conversation with my team now and then around this stuff. So any input that I can have externally into that knowledge, that thinking is really helpful. So for me, the agency's role is a bit like we were talking about around the relationship rather than it being a transaction and the added value and all that kind of stuff. It's just keep that stuff front of mind for me, because you're working with so many different organisations, experimenting and innovating with different things that we just don't have the ability or time to do. So it's really important that you're able to share that with me. And then from my team's perspective, like I said, that we're a really lean team. We don't have the experimentation time, but we also need to keep up with the industry. So being able to encourage them to do that is really important to me. So it's such a big conversation at the moment. I worry that we're not keeping up, but then when I speak to other people, everyone else worries they're not keeping up.
Exactly.
So
I'm of the view that actually a more refreshing place to be is don't think you know it all, because you don't. And actually,
you never will.
No one does, and you never will. And I think once you sort of squared that with yourself, you're okay. Equally, let's keep pushing and understanding and reading and making sure we understand it, but also in the context of, for us, our agency, and also then our clients, and then come to, have a conversation where we actually really think that this particular platform, we should work with you with it and plug it into your tech stack or whatever that's going to look like, because it's going to make a fundamental difference. Anyway, that was my slight thoughts on it. So let's move back to finances. So the title of this was Bang for Your Buck.
Right, okay.
So Budgets.
Yes.
Let's talk budgets. What tips do you have for agencies when we're talking budgets?
Don't ask me how much I've got.
Yeah, brilliant. See, it's always the first question I instinctively want to ask.
Because sometimes I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes I've got a brief together and I have no concept of how much that is going to cost me. Right. So I'm actually trying to figure that out as part of the process as well. So, and then there might be times when I've got £2.50. Don't know how much that's going to get me, but I want to be a bit shy about it and not.
I'm going to not a lot. I mean,
no, I know.
I'm not even a cup of coffee anymore.
Actually, so whichever way round, we can't win. So I think we just have to be open about that and not shy about it. Yeah. Because sometimes I think, well, if I only say I've got £2.50, maybe they won't want to help me, and maybe they won't want to work with me. Yeah.
That is a fair thing to think. Actually,
I'm joking about £2.50,
but
yeah. So it's it's hard to be open because you want to be able to have a really decent conversation without being hamstrung by money. Yeah. So, but asking me how much I have for a project is not a good start.
It's not a good start.
Not a good starting question.
Back to the thought around chemistry and don't ask me the right questions. But I appreciate that you also don't know because it's. For me, it's also the campaign and what value that's going to bring, and you might then help. Basically, what I try and do is help you make an argument, I guess, and say we should spend this money because we're going to get X, Y, and Z. Yeah. But that in itself is, I suppose, that comes back to my thought around for us is about, we're running the business and what's the forecast look like for the next quarter, and we're having this great conversation with Grant Thornton. Yeah. Or is it 10 grand or 100 grand? Yeah. That's where for me, part of my role, I suppose, is to try and work that through. Yeah.
But sometimes we don't always understand what we're paying for either.
No. Yeah.
So, when we go through that, I'm like, well, what is that? Yeah. I don't understand what that is. And what are we going to get from that?
Yeah. What's your favourite one of those? Like, as in, what is that?
Account management.
I knew you were going to say it. I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
I haven't spoken to anyone for 3 weeks. I'm not paying for that. But things like that are a bit nebulous. It's kind of like, what's the output there? Yeah. Like clearly filming for something for 2 hours. We know what that is, but things become a bit.
So actually, two
blurry.
questions on that then just come to mind. One is about, I suppose, the value of strategy, right? Mm-hmm. Because I suppose the question: how valuable do you see strategy? Because frankly, how we operate as a business is essentially, the kind of people who come into those roles are relatively expensive. Yeah. Do you see the value? Because those numbers can go high pretty quickly. Because you basically got your quite expensive people, that we're billing out to you. Do you ever look at it and go, well, what am I getting for that? Strategically,
I guess sometimes, but I suppose it's also what we're asking for. If we know that what we want is we want a video or we want a brochure. Yeah. Sorry, we don't do brochures, but you know what I mean. And then it's fairly straightforward. Yeah. That's a menued price, right? But if we're doing like a brand campaign, we know there needs to be some thinking around that. Absolutely. We know there needs to be some strategy because we can't necessarily do this is the bit where we need the challenge, the bravery, the confidence. So I'm open to that. But again, it is a bit kind of like, well, what happens in strategy? Goes into a big strategy hole.
And from our side, we work with DBA, and we can essentially benchmark our day rates out. Yeah. And if someone says to us, "Well, you're quite expensive," or "You're quite cheap," actually, there is an element of benchmark that we're a London agency with this size, and so there's some rigor from a third party, I guess, that sort of establishes that. Yeah. So, good. Okay. Next couple of questions. Relationships between agencies and clients and the longevity of those. So how do you know when an agency relationship has run its course?
Well, I suppose we're quite project based, so there might be quite a big fallow period, but to me that's not you losing us as a client. It's just we haven't got any work for you. So I think if we never came back to you and never invited you to pitch again, that would be a different scenario. But obviously sometimes our strategy changes, and once the strategy changes, then you need to look for different things in terms of input as well. So I can imagine that's the moment where where you might start to think about looking more broadly, looking for a different type of agency. But yeah, I don't. For me, it's not about you're not my agency anymore, because we've got more than one as well.
Yeah, well, quite.
But this is like, I know that I can pick up the phone or send an email, whatever, and we can work together again.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of when problems arise, let's say, what are your thoughts on addressing those? How do you?
It's a bit like the budget piece, isn't it?
It's a bit like the budget piece. Yes.
Well, clearly, the right thing is just to be honest about this stuff and open about it, and then you usually get a good outcome. It's like in any relationship, if you're not telling someone how you're feeling about something, they're not going to be able to respond. No. So it's just the same. Yeah. So
Any examples you can give us where or maybe where there was a bit of tension, but it got better because you kind of the truth sets all free.
All examples really. If you think something is going off in the wrong direction, or stakeholders aren't feeling happy with something, just bring it up quite immediately, because you're also the clock's ticking on the budget as well at the same time. Exactly. So you need to bring it up. It's a paid for relationship as well, so we need to have the confidence to do that too. It's not like a free service here where we're terribly British and don't want to complain. We're paying for this, we should be open about it. So quite often, maybe we're quite good at it in the team at Grant Thornton, but when we're feeling that something's a little bit awry, we'll say so.
So I agree completely. And again, it comes back down to us. What's part of our role is we want to retain the business. So in order to retain the business, let's be effective, but let's make sure the relationship's right.
Yeah.
And I think the other, you mentioned it actually about you work with other agencies. Yeah. So you've got any tips for agencies like ours, about how to manage that? So we're essentially working with other agencies.
I wonder whether it's more for us to manage it rather than you guys to manage it. The reason that we would have different agencies is because we've got different projects and agencies have different strengths. So it should never be viewed as like a competitive situation, but more collaborative one. If it could come to that's brilliant. Yeah. And we're all trying to achieve the same outcome, same objective. So it's not a case of someone's coming and taking some work from one and I'm giving it to someone else. That's not, it's different things that we're working on.
I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah. I've worked in sort of all agency groups where we are all working for the same client, where people have tried to got a bit elbowy and trying to and it's two things. One, I think it's, as you said, I think it's actually the client's responsibility to be absolutely clear about what your expectation of each of those agencies are, and then it's the requirement of the agency to respect that, and also to respect the other agencies, because we're basically all in and around the same world here. We're all trying to do good work and grow our agencies. So, getting to maybe the last thing to discuss, which is, this is quite broad, clearly, but just around B2B.
Yes.
I suppose some of the unique challenges of B2B marketing. Yeah. So you've worked across professional services a long time. What are your thoughts in terms of like the value of a B2B agency, in that not niche but quite focused way?
I was thinking about this earlier, and in professional services, we're brilliant at sales activation stuff. Yeah. Stuff, the technical term. We're not so great at brand building, brand activation, because that's not what we do very often. Yeah. We've all got strong brands, and we all just let them grow, let them build, and probably don't pay enough attention to them. So we don't have those skills, we don't have that knowledge, and I think that's where working with an agency can really help. The sales activation stuff we're great at. We could probably sell that ourselves. But and because we're also, we talked about it earlier in our category, we're just like so hard to differentiate from one to the other. We're different colours. We do slightly different things. So it's back to the storytelling again. It's how we work with our clients. It's how we deliver our work, which is the really differentiating piece. And I do think we need help with that. And unfortunately, sometimes we need to bring in that external help for our stakeholders to listen as well.
So you need a third-party agency to come in and say how important that is.
And I think we all find that, though. It's not just professional services. But and it really helps and gives some credibility to what we need to do. So when it comes to that, the bigger, more kind of brand-driven, more investment pieces, I'll totally want to get some help there.
Yes, some help there.
Totally want to get that help. Because that's where we differentiate.
Excellent. Well, look, I don't know, have you got anything else to ask me? I'm trying to think if I've got anything else to ask you.
Nothing from my point of view. I think we've talked a lot.
Absolutely, we have. I think we've done all right.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you very much.
No, thank you. It's good to chat.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you everyone for tuning in this morning. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks again to Maria, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.